Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. Today we have a Tier 8 standard battle here for you on the Haven map, featuring stackable gold, an extremely ordinary player who's about to have an extremely unordinary battle. He's in the US Navy Tier 8 battleship, the USS North Carolina. Before we talk about the North Carolina itself, because there are a few things to say about the ship, it marks a fairly big change in the US Navy battleship line, but it's the US Navy battleship line in general that I just wanted to talk about, because I noticed something. Do you know how many battleships the French have in World of Warships? Don't bother looking, I'll just tell you. 19. That's a respectable number of battleships. Do you know how many battleships the US Navy has in World of Warships? 42. More than twice as many. Do you know how many battleships Europe has in this game? 4. Do you know how many battleships the US Navy has just at Tier 8? 3 times as many as Europe have in total. There are 12 Tier 8 battleships in the US Navy line alone here in World of Warships. It's absolutely ridiculous. You've got the North Carolina here, the Kansas, the Nebraska, the Alabama, the Massachusetts, the Alabama VL, the Constellation, the Massachusetts B, the Alabama Super Test, the Tennessee, the North Carolina CLR, and the Alabama B. That's 12 battleships just at Tier 8. The US Navy battleship line in this game has more fighting ships than the entire French and Russian battleship fleets combined. That's crazy. I mean, I'm not complaining. Most of them are pretty good. Especially the North Carolina here at Tier 8. It kind of blurs the line between the slow standard class battleships that you've been using up until this point, the New York, the New Mexico, the Colorado, and then the fast fleet battleships that you get from Tier 9 and up, the Iowa being the poster child, of course. Because, I mean, the North Carolina isn't really a fast battleship in the same way that the Iowas were. A top speed of just over 27 knots isn't fast by anyone's standards, but it's noticeably an improvement over the crawling around at 18 to 19 knots that you've been doing prior to this in the Colorado. And the 16-inch armor-piercing shells that this thing can blast out to a range of slightly more than 23 kilometers will overmatch 27 millimeters of armor plating, which is the maximum amount of armor plating that you're typically going to find on any light or even heavy cruiser within this ship's matchmaking spread. That, combined with the increased accuracy, makes the USS North Carolina a significantly bigger threat to enemy cruisers than her predecessor, the USS Colorado, despite having 3 less guns. And that 27mm armour threshold for the overmatch on her 16-inch armour-piercing shells is also important when it comes to shooting at battle cruisers, especially the ones in battleship lines. Yes, Schlieffen, I'm looking at you, as well as all of those British battle cruisers, because that 27mm is typically the amount of armour plating that they have covering their bow and stern, which means the North Carolina can actually citadel certain Tier 10 battleships, which are actually battle cruisers, right through the nose, which is useful. I mean, technically that's true of any ship armed with 16-inch guns that fire armor-piercing shells. It's just the North Carolina has that increased accuracy, which means it's more likely to actually be able to do it. As far as the defences are concerned, she's alright. American battleship captains will know the drill here. Standard 32mm bow and stern plating, which means it can't be overmatched by anything lower than 18.1 inch, so Yamato or higher. The belt armour is barely standard. It's not especially tough, but it's certainly not weak, although the ship does have an exposed citadel, so you need to be careful making turns like this and showing broadside, or you will get paddled. The good news, though, is the deck plating is actually 38 rather than 32mm, which does give her enhanced survivability against high explosive spam from cruisers, even heavy cruisers. And I wasn't actually aware of this until I went to check up the ship's stats. She gets an enhanced heal, an improved damage repair party. Now, don't get too excited. We're not talking HMS Conqueror levels of ridiculous healing here. But it is better than the standard heal afforded to other Tier 8 battleships. So she can recover a significant amount of high explosive and flooding damage and light damage rather than citadel damage compared to other ships at this tier, which is nice. I think the only real downside to the North Carolina is the speed. When you upgrade to this ship from the Colorado, you're not going to have any problems with the speed, even though the stock engines only push this thing to a speed of 24.5 knots. That's still 5 knots faster than the Colorado. Oh, good hit there on the enemy Prinz Eitel Friedrich. But once you get the engine upgrade, and this thing will do 28, nearly 29 knots, you're not going to be complaining about the speed until you get used to the 28 knots. And then realise it's just slow enough to be awkward. It's just not quite fast enough to be competitive. And when you get used to the 33 knots that the Iowa can do at Tier 9, you'll be looking back fondly at the North Carolina because it is a good ship, but you're probably not going to be in any rush to play it again. I mean, let's face it, we've already established that you are spoiled for choice when it comes to US Navy Tier 8 battleships to play. There are 11 others besides the North Carolina, and almost all of them are not hampered by that awkward 28.5 knot top speed. So anyway, things aren't going too well here, are they? I mean, Stax isn't in... He's not in immediate trouble. He's taken very, very little damage, although he's starting to attract some fire. And he's done 40,000 damage of his own. It looks like the enemy team over here on the western end of the map is starting to focus down that Bayern, however. It looks like a bit of an easier target. And while the team have only lost 2 ships, 1 cruiser, 1 submarine, all of those losses have occurred over here on this end of the map, where Stax is. And over at the other end of the map, where Stax isn't, his team have, well, they haven't even left the starting blocks. So the team are falling back over here in the west, and they haven't even advanced at all at the other end of the map over to the east. Although it's more like the northeast because they're still on the starting line. The enemy team didn't even have that many ships over here. Well, I mean, they had exactly the same number of ships that Stack's team did. 5 versus 5. They've got 2 battleships, 2 cruisers and a submarine. It's just that, well, they're the ones getting all the kills, and they're about to get another one. That Bayern isn't going to last much longer. And once the Bayern's dead, guess who they're going to switch their attention to? And I think the Bayern's about to die with the next salvo that hits him. Oh, well, almost. Close enough for government work. Right, so 3 losses, and they've all occurred over here on Stax's watch, and now he is going to be the next victim. Although the friendly submarine, the Cachalot, has managed to pull a kill back elsewhere. But it's still basically 5 against 1 over here. Well, technically 5 against 2. There's a Prinz Eitel Friedrich with him. But the Prinz Eitel Friedrich can, and is, able to run away a lot faster than he can. The thing is, they don't just want to run away. I mean, you don't want to stand and fight because it's 5 of them and at best 2 of you. But at the same time, you do need to slow them down. Otherwise, they're just going to sweep up the flank behind you, and your entire team are going to be caught in the northwestern corner of this map in a crossfire between the enemy team on both flanks, and then it's goodnight Vienna. So Stax can by the look of it, because he's not running away anymore, the Prinz Eitel Friedrich have both realised they need to conduct a fighting withdrawal here. They cannot allow the enemy team to just roll this flank up. Which is all well and good in theory, but putting that into practice when you're effectively outnumbered 5-2 is going to be significantly more difficult. Slacks is working the throttle here. The ship doesn't respond particularly well to throttle commands, but he doesn't have an awful lot to play with here. That was unfortunate. This is a bit of an issue in all battleships that aren't battle cruisers with short, like, 20-second-ish reloads. I'm talking ships like the Schlieffen, like the Scharnhorst, because he could have really used armor-piercing loaded there, shooting at the broadside Anhalt, but, well, he had high explosive loaded to deal with an angled battleship, so you shoot what you have loaded. And now he's switched to the armor-piercing, and his only clear target is an angled battleship, the Prinz Eitel Friedrich. Thanks, game. Oh, actually, he might be able to shoot through the saddle of the island there and get some hits on the Nürnberg 44. Wait, the Nürnberg what? A tier 7 Nürnberg? I wouldn't want to play the Nürnberg at tier 7. I don't like playing the Nürnberg at tier 6. Well, in other news, he missed. The friendly Amagi did manage to sink the enemy USS Salmon. Unfortunately, that Prinz Eitel Friedrich has gone down, which means... Well, under normal circumstances, I would have said that means Stax is next, and yet he isn't. And if you look at the minimap, you can see why he isn't, because they're all shooting at somebody else. The friendly carrier, the USS Ranger. Fairly typical carrier player. Completely oblivious to anything going on around him. He's just sitting there while he flies his little squadrons around in open water, well within range of half of the enemy team, completely unaware that he's getting smashed 7 different ways to Sunday by all of those enemy ships that up until now, well, at least one of them is now focusing its attention on Stax, but that's probably just an indication that the carrier's about to sink and he wants to get some damage in on something else. And the Ranger is an extremely unfortunate aircraft carrier. Due to its armour layout, you can, and will often, score citadels on it, and yep, sure enough, the carrier is down. There is now absolutely nobody other than Stax in a position to do anything to prevent those guys from rolling right into his team's base. And remember, this is a standard battle. It's not domination, so it's more like a World of Tanks game in that both teams actually have a flag or a cap circle. Looking at the scores and the team list, it doesn't appear to be that bad. I mean, it doesn't look good, but it's not awful, because there's only a 200-point difference, and Stax's team have managed to pull 3 kills back, but those kills have all been at the other end of the map, so none of that helps Stax in the slightest. He's still outnumbered 5-1 over here, but there's not an awful lot of ocean left for him to withdraw to. So while undetected, he used the opportunity to get some shots off and complete the turn, so his citadel isn't completely exposed to return fire because they all know where he is now. That enemy cruiser, the Ramat, probably assisted by the submarine, the Undine, is flipping the cap circle. And his team are no closer to the enemy cap circle than they were at the start of the battle, so what happens now is basically all down to Stax. He takes his brave pills, he straps on his man pants, and actually, speaking of brave pills and man pants, check out the Ramat in front of him. Now, why would because that's basically an Atlanta light cruiser. Why would a light cruiser like that willingly expose itself to a battleship at a range of less than 9 kilometers? Could it perhaps be because he wants to launch his 9.5 kilometer range deep water torpedoes? I think it might be. And then he turns around and does it from the other side, because I can't think of a single reason, and sure enough, there they are, for a cruiser to willingly commit suicide like that, if not in order to get its torpedoes away. Meanwhile, oh, that Prinz Eitel Friedrich's pulling a very dangerous looking turn there. Oh, there's the submarine. Depth charges a back off cooldown. You can see why the Prinz Eitel Friedrich pulled that turn. He was trying to dodge torpedoes, but it did put him in a rather unfortunate situation. So, yeah. Exposed citadel and all that. Oh, hang on. Those were big hits against the Undine. Not quite enough, though. Oh, friendly Cleveland just popped its radar. All kinds of cockroaches scurrying out of the light. There go the depth charges. Hello, Nürnberg. Are you really a tier 6 cruiser cosplaying as a tier 7 cruiser? Do you have tier 7 cruiser armour? Although at that angle it's not going to matter against 16-inch armour piece. He's lucky to survive. Only the 1 citadel. I demand a refund. He's popping his smoke again. I guess that means that the radar has just expired. Damn it, he's gotten away with it. No further hits on the submarine either by the look at it. Alright, Normandy, got nothing better to shoot at. Oh, that's a nice exposed citadel you've got. No, he's realised the trouble he's in. He's turning. Those are going to be Nürnberg torpedoes. A decent hit on the Normandy. He did manage to turn to avoid getting citadeled. Secondaries opening up. Nobody's afraid of the North Carolina's secondaries. I mean, they're theoretically capable of killing things, but this is not a Massachusetts. Meanwhile, the rest of the team have actually been doing some good work here. The friendly Azulane Yukikazi has managed to get into the enemy cap circle, while that just means he's receiving the attention of the enemy carrier, who, unlike the Ranger on our team, was smart enough to not be sitting on the front lines when half the enemy team is closing in. Stax has taken a battering here, but there's the Nürnberg again, gets the rear turrets out. It's a set of... it's almost, but not quite enough. Instantly focuses the secondaries on the Nürnberg. He has to finish both the Nürnberg and the Normandy. He's down to 3,000 hit points. The heel is the only... oh, shit, that was close. He was down to 709 hit points when he finished the Normandy. He's relying on the secondaries to finish the... no, and he's got him!
Enemy cruiser foundered.
Oh, and there's the double strike. That's high caliber Confederate double strike, close quarters expert, Kraken Unleashed, all within the space of about a minute. He spent most of that game conducting a fighting withdrawal as his team were getting hammered around him. At the point where he really couldn't withdraw any further, he was forced to turn around and take on 5 enemies at once, pretty much alone. And somehow, even though they came within a hair's breadth of taking him out, somehow he's still floating and they're all dead. And there's only 2 enemies left. That Anhalt and the enemy carrier, the Erich von Löwenhardt, who continues to reset that Azalea Yukikaze, who is determined to try to flip that cap, despite the enemy aircraft that keep spotting him and keep hitting him and keep resetting him. But, well, I mean, realistically, what exactly is the Yukikaze's alternative? Go after the carrier and try to sink him in a destroyer? Yeah, it's not 2015 anymore. So you can understand he's just waiting in the cap circle, presumably for the Prinz Eitel Friedrich to arrive, or possibly the Cleveland. I mean, between the 3 of them, that should be an AA bubble that even an Erich von Löwenhardt can't get through. At this point, it is pretty much all over for the enemy team, with only 2 survivors against 6 enemies. I mean, if this had been a domination battle, even outnumbered 3-1, the way they are like this, if they'd managed to hold on to all of the cap circles for long enough and build up a substantial points lead, it wouldn't be the first time I've seen a team as badly outnumbered as this still manage to pull off a win. But it isn't domination, and so they didn't, and so they're pretty much doomed. Not, however, before Stax manages to farm a little bit more damage on the Anhalt, who is desperately trying to get that cap reset. You know, to the enemy team's credit, they didn't roll over and give up. They're still fighting it out, even though they're doomed to a defeat. So well done to the 2 enemy team survivors, because even though the battle did go the full 20 minutes, resulting in a points win for Stax' team, it wasn't because the enemy team just ran away and tried to drag it all out. And congratulations, of course, obviously, also to Stackable Gold himself in the North Carolina, a completely average player having a distinctly un-average battle that all hinged on that one turning point here in this Tier 8 standard battle on the Haven map. 2,371 base XP. Good job. Plenty more like that, please. Hope you all enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.